And good evening. It is 6:21. Russ Mitchell from the WKYC studio is going to go back to network in just a bit, but let's recap what we just heard. For the past 40 minutes or so, 4 new charges have been filed against former President Donald Trump, a third indictment for him. Those charges: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to impede the January 6th congressional proceeding, conspiracy against the right to vote and have that vote counted, obstruction of, attempt to obstruct and impede the certification of the electoral vote. Again, this indictment handed down this afternoon in a federal court in Washington, D.C. We do know the former president is due back in court on Thursday. This indictment is 45 pages long, and folks are going through it at the moment. You just saw the network there. They're going through it and have more things to say at 6:30. Very complicated, they say. So let's bring in our legal analyst, Stephanie Haney, who has been looking at this as well. Stephanie, what can you tell us about this?
Well, we just heard from special counsel Jack Smith in this case, and he talked very briefly about some of the things that we see in this indictment. And what he said, pretty pointedly, was he said that the former president is accused of defrauding the United States and disenfranchising voters, and that the January 6th riots were fueled by lies from the former president. Of course, these are accusations that the former president continues to deny. But the special counsel also called law enforcement who defended the Capitol that day heroes, made a point of doing that. And he didn't take any questions, which is something that we expected. The Department of Justice very rarely talks about any pending cases.
Smith also said the investigation continues into other individuals. We don't know who those individuals are. In fact, when this indictment was first announced, it was sealed. We did not know that, in fact, it was the former president who was named in this.
That's right. And then when it's unsealed now, so we don't know much more about who those potential people who might be involved in this are. We know that there are 6 unnamed co-conspirators that have been included as mentioned in the allegations. And we also know that the conduct that they're accused of doing goes back to mid-November. November 13th, I think, is the earliest date at which the actions are mentioned that led up to the basis of the charges here, leading all the way up to January 7th, which is the morning after all of that unfolded in the Capitol.
As we said, this is the 3rd indictment for the former president, and we know who the judge is going to be in this case, a D.C. district judge who is an Obama appointee. Is that correct?
That's correct. So this trial will happen in Washington, D.C. That U.S. district judge is Tanya S. Chutkan. She has been assigned to this. Again, that was an Obama appointee, as you mentioned. And also, Russ, a point worth making here, this is the only federal judge in Washington, D.C. who has sentenced January 6 defendants to sentences longer than the government had requested. Interesting.
In contrast to the judge in Florida, a federal judge handling that case who was appointed by the former president. So the former president issued a statement today, and also J.D. Vance has issued a statement. First, the former president called this a witch hunt, said this is not true, called it political. J.D. Vance accused this on the Biden administration and says the truth will come out eventually. So again, reaction already pouring in on this. These indictments, these trials are stacking up. You know, like planes at LaGuardia. You've got 3 now. He's also got a case in Georgia, which may or may not lead to an indictment. From a legal standpoint, how dicey does this become in terms of getting these trials mixed up and getting them in order? And what trial takes precedence? Is it due to when the indictment came down, or are there other factors involved as well?
Oh, there will certainly be other factors involved when it comes to when these trials will actually play out. You know, a lot of people had considered this particular instance that we're talking about today to be one of the more serious cases. The allegations are severe. You're talking about disenfranchising U.S. voters here potentially. And when it comes to how these trials will actually play out in terms of timing, you can bet that these prosecutors will be talking with each other. These courts will be talking with each other, because it is a severe stress on the Department of Justice. It's also a severe stress on the former president as well. This is a lot to have on a private citizen's plate, for sure. Of course, we want all of our private citizens to get the same treatment. So they'll definitely be communicating with each other about how this will be managed.
Again, a 45-page indictment now. Legal experts continue to go through this. More on the nightly news in about 5 minutes. Stephanie, thank you very much.
Sure.